This is Reader Seeks Romance with host Liz Donatelli. I'm sidekick Gail, and in this episode, we're going to turn the tables on Liz, and she's going to be the one interviewed by Sarah Brown, aspiring author, romance reader. She's also a friend and fellow book clubber. So stay tuned and let's see how Liz fares when she's the one being asked the question.
Hi, Liz Donatelli. How are you?
Hi, Sarah Brown. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on Reader Seeks Romance.
Well, longtime listener, first-time caller. I'm so excited to be here to ask you questions and get a peek behind the veil.
I am excited to be at your mercy.
Okay. Well, I guess first question. What is the first romance novel you ever read?
All right, so I was totally prepared for this question because I knew that you would be a diligent interviewer and ask me that because I ask all of my authors, and I appreciate how difficult it is to answer. So I did make notes so that way I wouldn't mess this up. So I started reading romance in 8th grade. And the first one that I recall in my Catholic school library that I remember picking up was Daddy by Danielle Steele.
Okay.
And what was the other one? Also, there was another, 8th grade was a banner year. Because I also read a historical romance called The Wind from Hastings by Morgan Llewellyn. And there was a phrase in it that I was astounded by. I was introduced to quivering manhood. And when my friend and I discovered this book, because we were both advanced readers for our age, and we found this quivering manhood, we started telling everybody in the class, so it got passed around from kid to kid, and they would just read quivering manhood, flip right to the page. We knew the page number. And everyone,
How did you get into starting this talk show?
There were a bunch of different reasons for my starting the show, but I suppose the primary one is my desire to remain active in the reading community, particularly romance, because I do enjoy romance. And secondly, to give authors cut off from their readers due to the pandemic, give them a way to connect and continue connecting with readers.
Well, I've been very impressed by how you keep to your schedule and the great authors that you've had on already.
Thank you.
Seen every episode, and I really enjoy your format and everything. So
thank you.
What's your favorite trope?
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go with forced proximity, aka stuck together.
Do you have a favorite subgenre within romance?
I do. And it's ironically one that I don't get to read that often, but time travel. I love anything to do with bending time and falling in love with someone from the past or the future. Yeah. And I wish more authors would write time travel, because you don't see a lot being published right now. And I'm looking for a fresh twist.
Do you have like a favorite romance novel of all time? Or of right now?
Of all time is always going to be, and I keep it on my bookshelf, Jane Eyre.
Okay.
Gothic romance is another one of my faves, but it's kind of weird to put that in a romance novel category. But as far as, but Jane Eyre, if people don't accept Gothic romance as a romance novel, then I suppose I'll say Pride and Prejudice, because that's my number 2.
The right answer is the one that you chose. So.
Thank you. I'm a stickler for like categorization and making sure that I get it right. So, and if people don't accept Pride and Prejudice because they're like, oh, well, that really wasn't a romance novel, then I'll have to get back to you, because those are the only 2 that come to mind.
I feel like people wouldn't accept that as a romance novel because they don't give enough credit to the romance novel genre. Like,
that's true. Right. Because if you keep it as a classic, it's considered valuable. Once you say, oh yeah, Pride and Prejudice was a romance novel, I think in many people's eyes, the value goes down. It's like, oh, it's just a romance novel. But you're right. So I'm going to say, I always look at it as a romance novel, even though it's not classically classified as romance.
Have you ever written?
Romance?
Yes.
No, I've written, but not romance.
Okay.
I have ideas. I have outlines that I've sketched out, like that I've kind of fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I have not written. The only
Okay.
full-length creative work I've written is a stage play.
Oh, wow. What was that about?
The stage play was a humorous, wacky play about a family that is poisoned by a turkey that they win at a church raffle, and them scrambling to try to find a cure, but they stand in their own way at every turn. But as far as writing romance novels, I have not done that, but I do have ideas that I recently were inspired to revisit by attending Romance Writing Academy's 101 workshop.
Oh, yes. I've been over there as well. So.
As you know, you have taken classes there as well.
In a number of your interviews, you have asked authors to place, if they would put a Liz Donatelli character in their book. So follow me on this. When these seeds start to come to fruition, when all these Liz Donatelli start popping up everywhere, how would you feel about a like a Spider-Verse type crossover where all of the characters come together in one book called like something like Liz Donatelli into the Donatelli verse or something, and you know, it's probably florists and publicists and all these side characters that you've written, that you've coaxed people into writing into novels.
I love that very much, because my mom just asked me, sidekick Gail just asked me, what are you going to do if all these authors publish your name? And at the same time, she says, is that legal? And I'm like, yeah, I think it's probably legal. I mean, I haven't copyrighted Liz Donatelli and they haven't copyrighted the name, but I love tying it into a Liz Donatelli verse. That to me is brilliant, and I would love that. And I encourage authors to do that right now.
That would be a high-class problem to have.
That would be a good problem to have, yes. And I'm hoping if the Donatelli verse, the Liz Donatelli verse gets big enough, I can make it into Guinness World Records as having, you know, my name the most in romance novels.
That would be amazing.
It would.
Judging a book by its cover, do you prefer the art covers or do you prefer the like more photorealistic, you know, abs and bodice ripping type covers?
You know, I've been burned before by so many fun, cute, illustrated book covers that don't represent what's inside. And I've either been pleasantly surprised or really like, either way, I don't like being deceived, even if I am pleasantly surprised. So I'm going to say I go for realistic book covers with models, or if it's just a silhouette or just really sexy writing, a sexy, you know, title, like the font looks appealing. But yeah, I mean, of course, I'm attracted to the colors and the cuteness of, you know, the illustrated ones, but I really trust and gravitate towards the ones with models or some kind of just all text and a nice a gradient colored background.
Okay. Got it. Are there any trends you're noticing in romance novels currently, that as you've been, you know, you're reading a lot for this and for pleasure too, so, and for reviews that you write, so are there any trends you're noticing in the industry?
Yes. I've noticed an evolution of the alpha male. I feel as if we've gone from rough and tumble threatening alpha males who are uber possessive to a more reasonable version, which is more protective and concerned and not necessarily a hothead, but has an air of authority that is workable. It's not off-putting. It's sexy. So that's something I've noticed more and more. I've also noticed a trend that I did mention in my pre-interview questionnaire. I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but the level of beef consumption is a trend that is off the charts.
Now, you mentioned this, and I have not noticed it, and I would like to, I'd like you to elaborate, because it's not something I've noticed, and also, I have a theory. So anyway, please elaborate.
I've thought long and hard about this. Being food is such a big part of my life and my culture. I always hone in on passages and romance novels about food. And I have noticed that beef, either steak or burgers at a barbecue, it's always at a barbecue, are consumed regularly, often right before a big sex scene. So I'm thinking that perhaps romance involves a lot of indulging and hedonism and pleasure. And beef is one of those things a lot of people try not to have a lot of because it's not really good for you, but it brings so much joy to some people to eat red meats and you feel so invigorated. So I think that somehow romance authors perhaps view beef as some kind of sexy meal. It pairs well with headbanging sex. I'm not sure why. Or maybe they're all being paid by the beef association, or I'm sure that I think they're the ones that beef is what's for dinner.
It's big beef.
Yeah, it's big beef.
Is there an author that you are really hoping to get on the show in the future?
I would love to, and there's no way in hell I can ever get her because she's a recluse. I would love to have Danielle Steele.
Does she still write? Tell me what's going on with Danielle Steele.
I do know she's still writing novels because they still come out. They publish regularly. I know she lives in San Francisco, and I actually saw the outside of her house during a San Francisco tour I took many years ago. And it looks like a fortress. It looks like a museum. It doesn't even look like a house.
I saw a picture recently of her desk. Like she has a desk that's like, I think it's like fiberglass or something. And it's like giant copies of Danielle Steele books stacked in a stack.
It would be cool to talk to her. But at the same time, I hesitate because if I did have the chance, I mean, I would jump at it, but then I'd be concerned my experience would be off-putting. Let's say maybe she's not in a good mood that day, and that'll probably really mess me up.
Is there anything like upcoming you want to promote in terms of who's coming up in the future that you want to mention?
Olivia Dade, romance author of Spoiler Alert, coming up in January. We also have an interview with Avon romance publicist Pam Jaffe. That's going to be a special airing this Friday. We have Denise Williams, the author of How to Fail at Flirting.
Ooh, I've seen so much about that. It just came out, right? I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes, she's a sweetheart, and my interview with Denise comes out in January, and and some other goodies coming up.
Well, keep them coming. They've all been great. Thanks so much for your time. This has been a blast.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you for taking the time to get to know me better.